Well, Pickle Knights, it's about that time once more. The leaves are falling, the pumpkins are grinning, and Halloween is just about a week away. So what better way to celebrate than by asking one crucial question. Can you beat Oblivion as Jason Voorhees? Yep, you heard that right. We're bringing the machete-wielding, hockey mask-wearing legend out of Camp Crystal Lake and dumping him straight into the hell-ridden lands of Cyrodiil. Because why not? Sure, Mehrunes Dagon is threatening to invade, but let's be real, what's scarier, an army of Daedra or an unkillable silent slasher with mommy issues?
Hey guys, you wanna go Skyrim?
We'll be slashing our way through Tamriel's most powerful demonic entities and damned souls alike. Stealth? Magic? Please. We've got brute strength and zero chill, the perfect recipe for a disastrous rampage. Prepare for a little less hero of Kvatch and a lot more silent guy in a mask who really enjoys ruining your day. So grab your witch's brew and your fear resistance spells, cause things are about to get spooky. Now then, let's see if Cyrodiil can survive a Halloween visitor who's not exactly here for the sweet rolls. First things first, we gotta make this guy look as deformed and brutish as possible. Well, close enough. It'll be covered by a mask anyway. Now, after getting verbally berated by his gel cell neighbor, Jason talked to, or rather was talked at, by the Emperor and his merry band of guard. Once they finally left Jason to his own devices, however, it was just about time for our slasher to get to slashing. Now, while I beat down the sewer locals, I figured this would be as good a time as any to talk about the rules of this run. By now, we understand my standard rules for most challenge runs, and if you don't, where have you been, my guy? Nah, I'm just playing. We don't seniority shame around here. Check the description for any non-challenge run specific rules if you haven't the fondest idea of what I'm talking about. But back to business. Since we'll be playing as Jason Voorhees from the Friday the 13th movies, that means we'll be restricted to wearing and using only things that Jason does. Now, I understand that he can be a bit creative with his many ways of unlifing camp counselors, like with pitchforks and whatnot, but since Jason is most synonymous with his machete, we'll be restricted to using that for the entirety of the run. With one exception of clearing the tutorial sewers, as we're well aware of Jason's brute strength while even unarmed. And of course, the piece de resistance will be forced to wear the slasher's famous hockey mask as well. Now, as for the clothing, I tried to make it look as close as possible to Jason's garb from really any of the movies, but I'll talk more about that a bit later. Also, as much as it would make sense that Jason, a undead supernatural serial killer, would just mow down everyone he sees, that would make getting to the end of the game damn near impossible. And since technically it's canon that Jason doesn't necessarily kill everyone he sees, just those that get in his way, like we seen in Jason Does Manhattan, for the purposes of this challenge run, we'll treat most major cities as Manhattan, and everything else, well, that's fair game. Especially those sweet lakeside camps. Now then, with the sewer cleared, the Emperor dead, and the Amulet of Kings in our grubby little mitts, Jason took it upon himself to rearrange the stars a bit so that it was a bit more fitting to a Voorhees. And with that out of the way, I did what any veteran Oblivion player would do. I hightailed it back to the Imperial City, except this time for Jason's long overdue makeover. Now, granted, I don't have a ton of funds to work with considering we just busted out of prison, but I think we'll make do. And after buying a few clothing items, only to settle back on the original prisoner getup, I walked my happy back over to the hack and slash where herbal grow jeez, that's a mouthful. See, this is why I love playing Oblivion, man. This was back when Bethesda wasn't afraid to name characters wacky like herbal grow orkulgal, yerbal grow orkulg. Close enough. Anyways, our new friend Herbal sold us not one, but 4 machetes, all that our little demonic heart could desire. And with that final piece of the puzzle, Jason was looking much more the part, and it was high time for the real challenge to begin. So Jason took a leisurely stroll down to Waynon Prairie to speak with our main man Jauffre about the amulet that we most certainly didn't defile the Emperor's corpse for. Now, like I said before, major cities may be off limits, but Waynon Prairie, well, let's just say that unfortunately for little old Jauffre, once I got the info I needed from him, he officially made the Voorhees chopping block. Yep, Jason and I learned real quick that Jauffre was an immortal beast and was not to be trifled with. You win this round, brother Jauffre. Huh? Well, back to the task at hand. Jauffre gave us a lead on where we might find the next heir to the throne of Tamriel. So Jason hopped and skipped his way all the way down to Kvatch, but just prior to getting there, I had my own share of spooks in the form of what seemed to be the house of a serial killer, based on the skeletal remains spread throughout. Ugh. Yeah, well, that was even too much for Jason to handle, so instead of dwelling on it, I continued my journey to Kvatch, where we were met by the fruity locals that were upset over a little demonic spawn taking over their entire city. Ironic that the one person that they ran to for help hunts high school seniors for sport. But rest assured that Jason made it impossible for them to make that mistake twice. Now, I'm not gonna lie, fighting the camp dwellers here was not exactly the easy sweep through I expected. These guys really put up a fight. Hell, one of them even started spawning demons of her own, which, to be honest, if I was being chased by a crazed lunatic in a hockey mask, I'd probably try to call for underworld backup as well. Unfortunately for her and the rest of the camp, Jason never dies. And with the camp cleared out, I was just gonna mosey up to Kvatch to see what all the drama was about, but not before handling this lowly camp scraggler that clearly had no clue about the horrible atrocities that just occurred 10 feet from him. Of course, I wasted no time slicing and dicing the guy, only to realize he was some kind of monk. Now, I know this looks bad, but Jason's already been to hell before. What's one more trip? Now, I tried the same thing with the guards up on the top of the hill, but I'll save you the suspense. They handed my ass to me on a silver plate, so Jason's just gonna have to look the other way on this one. That being said, the only way to get to Tamriel's rightful heir was to close the Oblivion gate that laid before me, and that's exactly what I did. I can't lie though, Jason is still pretty underwhelming when it comes to combat, as we've seen back at the camp, but I made do, and somehow we still came out on top. Now, on any normal playthrough, one would probably just walk straight ahead into Kvatch, but this is no normal playthrough, and as y'all have probably caught on by now, it never really is when I'm steering the ship. So I fast traveled back to the Imperial City, aka IC, aka Manhattan, and attempted to sell as many of those camp dweller belongings as I could get my hands on, as I'm gonna need the money later on down the road. But unfortunately, our plans were stifled by the Chief of Security Watt. To be honest, I'm a little honored on behalf of Jason that they sent the big dogs to take care of him, or at least I would be if it wasn't for what happened next. Yep, not the first time we've seen the inside of a jail cell in one of these playthroughs, and it definitely won't be the last. Well, after Jason waited out his sentence like a good little noodle, I fast traveled back to Kvatch, where I took advantage of the newly unattended campsites for some much needed rest. And by rest, I mean a 1-hour nap to level up.
You sleep rather soundly for a...
That's when, out of nowhere, a Dark Brotherhood informant told me what a huge fan he was and asked for Jason's autograph. He also formally invited me to join their murder cult. Now, this sounds exactly like something Jason would be into. I mean, killing for the hell of it? That's kind of his thing. And I probably would have joined the Dark Brotherhood in this playthrough, but I'll be honest, I completely forgot. Whoops. Look, it's not easy roleplaying as a deranged undead lunatic, okay? Anyways, now that my conscience is clean and my levels were level, it was time for Jason to play hero for once and save Martin from Kvatch. I'll again spare you the details. All in all, everything went pretty smoothly, and now that we had Martin trailing me, I had to meet up with Jauffre and Wayne on Prairie to discuss our game plan. Only I didn't really get that far, as Daedra had completely overran Wayne on Prairie. Can't say I was disappointed though. This was our first chance for Jason to truly sharpen his blade on enemies that weren't just senseless fodder. Except that's exactly what these Daedra proved to be. I don't know what it is with the standard Daedra warriors, but they seem to fall to my machete far easier than their more barbaric counterparts. And now that Jauffre was also rescued by the great and all-powerful Jason Voorhees, it was finally time to make the great journey to Bruma, which was a far longer trip than I would have liked, but somehow we made it. You mean we gotta climb that too? Son of a bitch. Well, after racing up the mountain, I finally arrived at the temple just in time too, as I'd almost missed Martin's lame initiation into the blades. Hip hip hooray! Hip hip hooray! With Martin now safe at the Blades Temple, Jauffre sent me to fetch a familiar face, Baurus. It was quite lucky a serial killer like Jason showed up when he did, as Baurus was on the receiving end of an assassination attempt. Wait, did I say he was lucky Jason showed up? What I meant to say is he was lucky he didn't get assassinated by me as I swung a 4-foot machete wildly into the darkness. Somehow, Baurus didn't get hit in the commotion, and the assassin was no more. So instead of escalating things any further, I took the mildly undeserved pat on the back for saving Baurus, and that's when he directed me to a local bookworm mage that studies Daedra. So I waddled on over there in hopes of getting some more info on the great Oblivion menace, but instead of getting actual answers, Taormina sent us on a wild goose chase for 4 Mythic Dawn books that might lead us to their leader. Now, the first 2 books were nice and easy to obtain, and as for the third, I just had to bully a little elf man into giving it to me. But the final book was going to be a little more involved to obtain. So Baurus and Jason skipped on over to the Imperial sewers, where they intercepted a Mythic Dawn meeting. And by intercepted, I mean I ran down and immediately started swinging, cause ain't nobody got time for that. After collecting all the books, I took them back to Taormina, who then gave us a hint as to how to find the Mythic Dawn hideout. The clues were hidden in the first words of each paragraph, but Jason's reading comprehension was still pretty much at an elementary school level, you know, considering the whole drowning in a lake is a kid thing. So it kinda took an abnormal amount of time for him to spell things out. Well, after a few hours of contemplation and a little bit of help from the gods of knowledge, it was clear the next piece of the puzzle laid within the walls of the city once more, this time in the form of the tomb of Prince Camoran. After waiting a few hours and fondling the glowing stone, we had a newfound knowledge of where to find this secretive Mythic Dawn hideout. Excited about the prospect of more senseless murder, Jason wasted no time getting on over to the cave. Now normally you have the option to enter this place covertly and infiltrate the ranks to get into the secret meeting, but that sounded like too much work and critical thinking, and it really lacked the enjoyment of slicing and dicing these Mythic Dawn scum. Well, after clearing the dungeon of its cultist inhabitants, I found myself in the main ritual room where Mankar Camoran was performing, well, a ritual. What else did you expect? It's a ritual room. I tried to creep down on them to get a better view, and then ended up toppling down into the middle of the session. That really didn't go as planned, but it was an exciting opportunity to cut down the competition, so Jason was all for it. I gotta say, I got a lot further than I expected to, chopping down most of the weak cultists like nothing, but still got laid out by the surprising power of the Sparks Mage. Oh no, Jason has to murder more peeps with his machete. Whatever will we do? And with the room cleared, Mankar had unfortunately escaped to his Oblivion realm with the Amulet of Kings. So I snatched up the ritual book and raced back to Martin with the bad news. Bro was pretty unfazed by this though, and I gotta be honest, I feel like Jauffre was a little more pissed because he immediately sent me to do some busy work for the Blades, hunting down some spies that were apparently getting a little too close to the temple. But Jason's everlasting bloodlust ensured that we wasted not a second more yapping about it, and bopped on down to the spy area. And after waiting patiently in the darkness, I was able to get the jump on our friend here, and that was that. Or so I thought. With the spy taken care of, I took their keys and searched their Bruma home for anything that might tip us off to who hired them and why they were there. Now, I'm gonna be honest, it had been so long since I'd played Oblivion that I genuinely hadn't the fondest idea of what I was looking for. So, the search through the spy's place, which should have taken maybe 2 to 3 minutes, ended up taking me closer to 30. Yeah, really wasn't my best moment. But eventually I discovered the partially uncovered basement trapdoor and quickly located the damn note I was searching for all along. Well, at least it's finally over. And on that note, I quickly sold everything I stole from the spy's place, and I made my way back to Jauffre to give him some good news for once. And then my world began crumbling in around me. Okay, that's a bit dramatic, but things did not get better from here. Upon talking to Jauffre, he made it clear that the second spy was still very much alive, but this was not the case. I didn't know it at the time, but when I fast traveled back to the Imperial City for some general merchantry, I got jumped by who I assumed was just a random mythic Dawn cultist, and they were quickly put down by me and the local guards. But looking back, she was supposed to be the second spy, and for some reason, Jauffre's questline didn't update when she was eliminated. I really don't know why this happened, but my leading theory is that one of the guards that helped take her down got the last hit. But whatever the case, this game has been around for quite a while, and it's pretty notorious for its random glitches like Fallout New Vegas, so I really wasn't surprised to be in this interesting predicament. But I ain't no quitter, and neither is our friendly neighborhood Voorhees, so I reloaded just before getting jumped in the city and waited patiently outside the spy's house in hopes of them spawning. I waited and waited and waited some more, but no sign of the spy. Now, I don't know if it was the delirium from staring at Oblivion's excruciatingly slow waiting screens, but I straight up just attacked a random civilian just chilling on a nearby bench. You know, just in case it was the spy. I think playing as Jason's really starting to go to my head. Anyway, there's no rest for the wicked, so I continued on my warpath, trying to find this damn spy. I even walked up and down the caverns that connected to the spy's basement, but still nothing. So, as a last resort, I exited through the cave system, and again patiently waited in the blistering cold for our Daedra-crazed friend to arrive. But after about the third day of waiting, I was hit with one of Oblivion's magnificent loading screens, and at that point, I knew something was about to happen. And sure enough, here comes that little punk I was searching for over the course of the last hour, running out of the darkness like a skinwalker. I'm not kidding when I say that Jason's bloodlust combined with my frustrations made for a seriously quick battle. And with her taken down, I finally got that sweet quest progression prompt, and when I returned to our boy Jauffre, I got the green light I was hoping for. And with that hellish quest now behind us, it was pretty smooth sailing from here on out. Martin now tasked me with locating a Daedric artifact of some kind, and without a second thought, I immediately went to the nearest tavern inn and bought as much cheap wine as money could buy. Then Jason tapped his shoes together, and voila, we arrived at the Shrine of Namara. Jason then got absolutely plastered, downing a few bottles of cheap wine right in front of the holy shrine. I did this so our personality would drop down to just about 10, which should be enough for Namara to give us the time of day. Yeah, well, I guess I didn't read the fine print. I forgot, Namara only talks to you if you're at least level 5 or higher, and we were still coasting through the game on level 2, so I scrapped that idea and set my sights on the only Daedric god that would have me, Sharagorath. Nah, I'm just playing. I'm not about to let Martin destroy the greatest weapon in Oblivion. No. I was searching for Azura. But just before visiting her shrine, I made sure to stop by the Bruma Mages Guild to totally legally procure some glow dust. And with the glow dust in hand, I was able to gain an audience with the Daedra Lord, and she sent me on a little hack and slash quest to a nearby ruin. This went smoothly, except for the fact that it didn't, and all these guys were vampires. And just one touch could potentially give Jason porphyric hemophilia, which is not something I had the time or patience to deal with right now. So it was a whole lot of saving, slicing, and reloading to get through there. And I mean a lot. These guys were relentless. Maybe I should have invested in a garlic infused machete for this one. Ah well, at least it was over with, and now that the vampires were eradicated, Azura yapped at me for a bit before finally handing handing over Azura's star. And at long last, we had the Daedric artifact that Martin needed. Only, the fun didn't stop there, as the minute I handed the artifact to Martin, Jauffre insisted I help the Bruma guards close the gate that just spawned outside the walls. Yippee! It may have been a mighty inconvenience, but at least the gate was pretty simple to close, especially with the added support from the Bruma guardsmen. And after chopping down more demons than I could count, I finally stole the sigil stone, only for the chief guardsman to try to steal the limelight over there. What are you doing, bro? And with that minor detour now in the books, Jason made his way back up the mountain, only for Jauffre and Martin to send him to another cursed dungeon in search of the blood of a god. Simple. But mind you, Jason's not exactly the following orders type, so these go for quests have been really tough on him. It's okay, big guy, it'll all be over soon. Speaking of getting things over with, it didn't take me long to locate the cursed tomb, and as soon as I entered, the mood shifted immediately. Things just got spooky. I immediately had to whip out my trusty torch, as the place was far too dark, especially with the EMB I was running. And it took not even a minute to run into a ghost, to which I quickly found Jason's machete to be completely useless against. So, I ran as fast as possible. In fact, most of the dungeon was dodging ghosts and pulling levers. That was until I was attacked by the first of many undead blade members. Although the fight wasn't exactly difficult, it was kind of taxing as these guys had a lot of health and we pretty much have none right now. So blocking quickly became my best friend. But with the final slash of the blade, the spooky scary skeleton dropped and I figured I was in the clear. Jeez, bro. Where the hell did you come from? Yeah, being jump scared by a ghost was definitely not on my Oblivion bingo card. But at least this ghost was a homie and said he'd help banish the magic barrier that blocked my ways to the blood of the god, so long as I do him a solid as well and release his cursed brethren. This sent me much deeper into the dungeon to hunt down 3 more of these skeleton warriors. But I won't lie, I did try to walk straight through the magic barrier. I mean, it's an old game, who knows, maybe it'd work. But yeah, as a surprise to no one, it did not work and damn near killed our boy Jason. So instead, I followed instructions and hunted down the remaining blades. The second one went down just as easily as the first, but let me tell you, number 3 was not going down without a fight. But eventually, he too fell, and that left just one more cursed blade to set free, and I could finally get my stuff and get out of this place. But that's when things took a turn for the worst. Can you see anything? Yeah, me either. Yep, my very last torch. At this point, most would have probably disabled the ENB or cranked up the brightness, but where's the fun in that? So, I spent the next half hour carefully navigating the hauntingly dark hallways with only my compass to guide me. Eventually, Jason stumbled his way into a pitch-black room in which he started getting slapped around by some unknown entity. But considering what we were looking for, it was pretty safe to assume that we just found our guy. So I gave Jason the nod and started swinging for the hills in hopes of hitting the damn thing. Luckily, my blade started to make contact, and for some reason, this guy glowed yellow every time I hit him, which was pretty helpful, and the constant flashing of a glowing skeleton kinda made it feel like a spooky Halloween night rave. But eventually, I heard the sweet sound of Bro's knees buckling, and his ghastly spirit materialized before me. And considering how things were going, I followed our new friend here back to the chamber so as to not get lost in the darkness all over again. But once there, our ghostly homies followed through with their word, and I had the god's blood that Martin was after. I quickly brought it back to him, only to have to locate a great welkin stone in yet another dungeon. Well, no sense in complaining about it, so Jason strapped his mask a bit tighter and then got to work. Now, I'll spare you the details of this little adventure as it was pretty much the standard RPG dungeon that you'd expect. But once I located the Great Welkin Stone, a discount dragon priest spawned behind me and started unleashing his wrath upon poor Jason. And this fight ended up being anything but easy. But after activating my pro gamer skills and chugging a shitload of healing potions, Jason eventually emerged victorious. And with the Great Welkin Stone now proudly in Martin's possession, there was but one final item that we needed to procure, a Great Sigil Stone. But in order to do that, I would need to close the Great Oblivion Gate, which, based on how the last battle went, Jason was certainly not ready for. Not to mention, Jason's been itching to kill some campers ever since Kvatch. So, in the spirit of Halloween and Jason's unquenchable thirst for spilling blood, it was time to hunt down some campgoers. And with every camp in the land of Cyrodiil now wiped off the face of the planet, Jason was feeling much more fulfilled and ready to take on whatever Oblivion could throw his way. And as a bonus, all that hacking and slashing got our blade skill up to 58, but that wasn't quite high enough for my liking, so I ran around Cyrodiil talking to this guy, then this guy, and let's not forget about this guy. And bada bing bada boom, my blade skill was, yeah, well, just a few levels higher. Though when running through one of these cities, I was stopped by the local guard, and in hindsight, running around with a machete covered head to toe in blood is kind of a red flag. But I just spent all my cash on leveling up, so Jason got arrested for his crimes against humanity. Told you it wouldn't be the last time we saw these bars. But with all that behind us now, it was finally time for the Great Battle of Bruma and to close the Great Gate. So I gave the Bruma Countess the all clear, and me and Martin walked down to the side of the gates. But while we were walking through the town, they kept chanting, "Hail Martin! Hail Martin!" What about Jason? Oh well, it's time for battle, not praise anyway. After letting Martin stand on his soapbox for a minute, the Daedra came charging in and the war was on. I kept up pretty well too, taking down loads of enemies. That is, until the enemies started getting a little too up close and personal with the rest of the guards. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and say that I didn't hit them, but I feel like there should have been a little bit of forgiveness on the friendly fire here. But nope, as soon as I so much as clipped one of the Bruma guardsmen, everybody turned on me, which quickly turned the tides of battle a bit. Well, let's give it another shot, shall we? Well, on the third try, I just gave up attacking the enemies that got anywhere close to the guards and focused on the scamps and such that hung out near the gates. And hallelujah, it worked. I guess third time really is the charm, as I had survived long enough for the Great Oblivion Gate to finally open. And considering the guards were more of a threat than the Daedra themselves, once inside the Great Oblivion Plain, Jason got to work slashing down enemies with relative ease. Now, I wish I could say I figured out how to solve this particular gate rather quickly, but it was actually the opposite, and I ended up going in circles from tower to tower for a while until I eventually gave up and just beelined it straight through the lava. Cause as we all know, heat was never much of a factor for old Jason anyway. And it didn't take long after that to locate the Sigil Spire, but by that point I was down to the wire time-wise and I still had a bit of a maze to go. So I had to kick things into overdrive, and by that, I mean walking at a snail's pace up the spire because Oblivion was released before sprinting was invented. But nevertheless, I reached the top with just a minute or so to spare on the clock. I of course still had to handle the Sigil Keepers, but that was nothing Jason couldn't handle at this point, and with just 45 seconds to spare, I snagged the Great Sigil Stone and closed the Great Hellgate for good. Not very proud of the good deed he just committed, Jason nearly took off the head head of one of the guards, but settled for the scraggling Daedra instead. And with every item needed to enter Mankar's Oblivion plane now at our disposal, our main man Martin let us know that he was ready to begin the ritual. But just before entering that new and highly difficult realm, I felt like it would be a good idea to level up a bit first, at least with our blade skill. Also, I repaired Jason's machetes for the first time in ages, so now we should be a bit more prepared for what awaits us. But spoiler alert, I wasn't. At first, I thought it was a fluke, like there was no way I just cleared the Great Oblivion Gate with no problem, but this scenic paradise had dinosaurs taking my lunch money. But it wasn't just that one. The battles kept ramping up in difficulty, and to be honest, I only survived the second encounter because a random immortal being got caught up in the action. That was just the break I needed though, as once I got past that area, I found the Daedra that held the braces that sorta acted like a key to the next few areas. Yes, finally something I remembered. So without so much as a second thought, I got to slicing, and I guess I caught him off guard so bad that he really didn't know how to react. That ended up proving to be his undoing, and I got those braces off him lickety-split, yeah? Keys in hand, Jason charged through the hellish caverns, mowing down any enemy that got in his way, eventually breaching the first gate. Not long after this though, I was stopped by a rogue Mythic Dawn cultist who expressed his interest in helping me escape this place. And although his motives were unclear, Jason's not one to question evil intent, so he agreed. Although Jason quickly regretted that decision as soon as his toes were almost melted off after being caged and dipped in lava. This was all just a ploy to get a Daedra off our back though, so he let it slide. At this point, I ran through the cavern with the quickness, taking down any enemies that looked important, like this guy who was definitely the inspiration for Skyrim's vampire lords, and eventually I found the Mythic Dawn radical again, and he politely removed the gauntlets that were adhered to my forearm. Now, he asked to tag along and help take down Mankar at this point, but as we all know by now, companions are not allowed in these challenge runs, unless it's absolutely necessary. So, I left little bro in the dust and made my way to the Great Temple, where Mankar was surely hiding. Just outside the front doors though, I was rudely met by his children, the brother-sister duo. But at this point, I was so fed up with talking that I went into a blind fury, taking down the sister immediately, and the brother, well, he was a little more difficult, and I ended up having to quick load quite a few times before getting the final blow. With both the goons taken care of now, that meant I had way less to deal with inside, and with that said, Jason charged through those doors and unleashed his camp counselor hatred and mommy issues all over that smug high elf. This actually got Mankar's health down pretty low, but between his self-healing and getting tossed around by his Daedric bodyguard, this fight proved to be quite a bit harder than I expected. But after getting yeeted against the wall a few times, I was eventually able to separate him from his bodyguard, and Mankar went down within just a few more slashes of the machete. And with that cult leader now sent to a separate plane of oblivion, I ripped the amulet off his neck, but at this point his paradise began crumbling down. Though that didn't stop Jason from trying to take his throne. Okay, yeah, bad idea. Returning home once more, I spoke to Martin and handed over the Amulet of Kings, and with Mankar out of the picture, we made our way down to the Imperial City to speak with the High Chancellor, Akato, to have Martin take his rightful place as Emperor. But the hits just keep coming, as Mehrunes Dagon was now on his way and had launched a full siege on the Imperial City. So I spent the next 20 minutes or so playing Protect the President. A little fighting here, a little fighting there, but we were far too late to stop it. The Daedra Lord had awoken and was terrorizing the town square, which left us with just one option. We calmly walked past Mehrunes Dagon, pardon me buddy, then I bid farewell to Martin and watched him blow up before my very eyes, only for a Mega Evolution Charizard to swoop in and save the day. And with the Daedra Lord shoved back into the hellhole he crawled out of, of, the final quest was complete, proving once and for all that yes, you can indeed beat Oblivion as Jason Voorhees. Well, that does it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed that one, and if you did, feel free to peruse the rest of my channel. We got plenty more chaos where that comes from. Now, I know this one was a bit longer of a wait, almost 3 weeks, yikes, but hopefully it gets y'all in the Halloween spirit. On that note, I hope you have a safe and enjoyable Halloween. This has been the Mythical Pickle, and on behalf of the Pickle Fellowship, I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and as always, remember to smile.